1. Welcome back to the Brandon K Show, broadcasting live to Facebook and YouTube. Here with my friend, Mr. Frank.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Frank, we were on here just a few days ago talking about dealing with depression, which was a good one. We had tips and tricks for dealing with depression right here. You can go watch that episode for more talk about that. And the conversation pretty quickly turned into talking about dealing with obsession, because obsession and depression are pretty tied together. If you have an obsession, you might get depressed. If you have depression, you might be obsessing about something.
Mm.
So the tools are very much linked. When we start to talk about obsession in an unhealthy way, what is an obsession in an unhealthy way? I have definitions here. Before that, I'm going to say Brandon K Show is brought to you by Gift Apply. Eco-friendly wrapping paper for charity. 33% goes to charity of these great causes like Give Kids the World. Stand for the Silent. Check out giftapply.com and use promo code BK Show for 25% off.
Yeah.
Yep. But now we get to try to help people who deal with obsession. And Frank and I were talking before, and he's like, okay, what do you mean by obsession? And so I said, what do I mean by obsession? And I went and I looked up obsession in the dictionary, and it says, what is obsession? The state of being obsessed with someone or something. Okay, so then you have to go, what does obsessed mean? Obsessed means to preoccupy or fill the mind of someone or something continually, intrusively, and to a troubling extent. So to have our mind preoccupied by something we don't want it to be preoccupied with. Or preoccupied with, or constantly worrying about something.
Yeah, it's the constantly, right? That's the words that in red there.
Yeah, we could say repeatedly. We could,
Right.
because someone gets thrown off on, constantly means all day, every day, but repeatedly would be, too much. So
Yeah, 'cause you could forget for a second because like you fall down or something, but the thing is it's going to repeat, isn't it? It's just going to come right back.
like I can talk about, we call our addictions obsessions for one, but I also had these growing up. I always had these obsessions over women, throughout each grade of my life. It was like, I like that one. I know guys like girls in general, and they're like, oh, I like, we're always in a state of finding which girl we like and liking them and thinking about them. But like for me, it was like always one girl, and then it's like no other girls matter. You just like get hyper focused on like one girl. Did you ever go through that, Frank?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so often, but definitely at times there was only one girl. Yeah, no question. There was only one girl in the world at times.
So it's a crush, but they could also call it an infatuation.
Right.
And I remember I hung something up on my wall in high school from a magazine that said, "Are you attracted or are you obsessed?" It was from like one of these teen magazines, and it was like just having knowledge of like, do you just like this person and want to spend time with them, or are you obsessed and have an unhealthy infatuation?
Dude.
So an infatuation is an intense but short-lived passion or admiration for someone or something,
Okay.
which is interesting because it's just like short-lived, I guess.
Short-lived is definitely the word in red there, right? Yeah.
But we're gonna start getting into the advice about what I've found to help me. I had it was one one crush a year, and it would always be like just like beating myself up about like, oh, why like I'm too scared to go talk to her, and maybe I'll talk to her on like the last day of school or something, and then just like in that
Ooh.
like this overthinking and obsessing about oh,
Ooh.
it's too scary to like go and ask her out in front of everybody um
Sure.
during the school year, but like on the last day I want to tell her I like her and get her number, and and then not doing that and just being like chickening out, and then the cycle repeats.
Yeah, it's painful. It's painful. Ouch.
But and for that reason I'm doing it to myself, and I know I'm doing it to myself. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Because you repeat it.
Well, because I repeat it, but also because like I'm the one who's allowing myself to have those thoughts and who's not taking action and like trying to get to know them as a person. I'm like the
Yeah,
one. I'm the one who's like
right.
in the cycle of my own doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So am I, bro.
And so I learned.
That's a very, very accurate description, a very good description of a phenomenon that I have dealt with forever and I've never really articulated.
But
Can you
we
say
talk.
something about it again?
But we attack it. Kind of. We talked about it on the dealing with depression, like the automatic negative thoughts. It's kind of
Right.
like just automatic obsessive thoughts, kind of at a certain point.
Hmm. Okay.
And so
Yeah.
our Frank and I's number one thing when I read in this list, our number one thing was mindfulness. So,
Bing.
so no matter what intrusive thoughts we have, and these can be obsessive thoughts, these can be OCD thoughts, they can be uh, infatuation thoughts, or drinking and using thoughts, or gambling thoughts, or whatever vices. But mindfulness is curative, is something a guy I listen to says, which means it can cure anything. So like it's healing and mending. Mindfulness, if we're doing something to ourselves, if our mind is doing something to us and we're at the mercy of our mind, we have control over our mind at the end of the day. And unless we're completely insane.
Well, we have some. We can sort of get better at it,
Hmm.
but it's kind of limited too.
It's like a process. It's like if I were obsessing all day every day, or 70% of the day, when I start to be mindful of it, it might only go down to 65%. But
Yeah.
it's not going to be like oh, all of a sudden I can cure myself instantly. But
Right. Right. Right.
as far as being mindful of something, the more I'm mindful of something, the easier it gets, the less I notice that the obsessive thoughts can creep in.
Spot on. That's. I mean, that's. I think that's like the very like backbone of the mindfulness thing is to relieve yourself of some kind of problem because well you're catching for it. You have like a strainer up and you're like catching for something, and then when you find it in there, well look, you have a new tool, you have some mastery you didn't have before.
Yeah,
You have some capability you didn't have before, so it's a great thing.
yeah. You had some advice about how to be mindful.
Well, it's funny when it comes to obsession. a I would I haven't had it in a long time, but I have had it. And there was a time when I was obsessed about a woman, and I could say I probably thought of her several hundred times per day for some time. And if I had known that it was that many times, and if I had known like what percentage of the day I was spending on it, and if I had to review the reports, like I was like a budget administrator, okay, and the expense reports came in and it said you have been spending like 47% of your waking hours on this, and you had 1,137 incidents this month, then I think I would be forced to look at that and say, I've detected a problem here in my administrative capacity.
Sure. Yeah, that's being mindful. That's looking at it from an outside perspective, looking at it from the boss's perspective the employee
Right.
instead of the employee's perspective.
Dig. Right. Right. And so then I think it gives you some power over it, because then you get to say, instead of it choosing 47%, I'm going to pick the number now.
Hmm. Did you, was it some form of an awakening for you to realize that you were obsessing, or did you know you were obsessing as you were in it?
No, realize it later.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I, even as mindful and intelligent as I can be, and I can have the thing on my wall, like it can still kind of overwhelm you, and you're not thinking about it, and it's just happening, and you might think it's natural and normal at first, and then it becomes unhealthy, and you don't realize it's unhealthy till later, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely depends where you are in your walk. I mean, I wasn't really into mindfulness when I was doing the obsessing.
Hmm.
I learned it in recovery, because after I got obsessive, I got severe anxiety,
Hmm.
and then I had to get into recovery.
Right, right.
And then that's where they taught me about mindfulness.
Mindfulness. What? Who taught you about mindfulness?
Well, in recovery, I learned about the general idea, but then I read about it myself at Eckhart Tolle to actually get my own little background. But they certainly had things like acceptance, and just that one tool. Ooh, that was a world beater. That was a world changer for me. That was really a banger and a life changer.
And you talked about it on dealing with depression. Our last episode is like acceptance is like a portal for you, and you let it wash over you. I mean, it was hard to kind of explain what it means, a portal, but you let it wash over you, and then you take the acceptance into your portal, into your permanent essence, which is your higher self, and kind of is that description of how acceptance helps you.
Yes, I find that acceptance is the portal.
Right. And I've
And the
also
deeper I go, yeah.
acceptance was the first episode of this show here on YouTube this year, and I learned some severe acceptance this year as well, which is, I can't control anything. I mean, I can't control the overthinking and the obsessing. I'm not going to come up with some magic solution to my obsession. It's going to be a daily process. I'm not going to be able to, make um I can't control how other people feel. I can't control if people like me or don't like me, if people want me in their life or don't want me in their life. I can only control myself, and and you know and accept that I can't control everything else around me. So that acceptance has been crucial for me too. I'm learning it more and more as my portal into my happiness, and focusing on what I can change, and I can create I can create things, I can help people, I can I can make music, I can practice music, I can work a job, or try to do good health wise, my diet and exercise, but I can't um control how people feel me and perceive me. So I also got another one which we talked about, not even about women or anything else, but a lot of us can get obsessive on what other people think. And so I my advice on that is simple, easy. What other people think, none of my business. It doesn't affect me. I don't have to take it personal. I don't have to assume what other people are thinking. So the all those together are what they're
Mm.
thinking, none of my business.
Yeah, especially when you say, I don't need to think. What are they thinking?
I
Like, I
drop.
don't need to answer the question. I can let the mind put that up as a lazy question, and I can just not answer it.
Mm.
And when you were saying it, it felt very liberating when you were saying it. You were like, right, don't even answer the question. Let the mind worry about it. I'm not worried about
Let the
it. These
mind.
people have enough to worry about today, and I have enough to worry about today, and let's not add to it. Let's go about our business.
Yeah, it's just not helpful. We have to have enough trust in ourselves that we come across as a nice normal person, and beyond that, there's I can't control what other people think of me. So
Yeah, right. We got some sense of how to stay out of the Huskow because we're not doing disorderly conduct, right? There's some sense of it.
and that's like the fear. The fear of the thoughts could be like, something's wrong with me. I don't that's the fear inside me of like why I would care what other people think, and why I believe other people
Mm.
care what other people think, is they have a fear that something's wrong with them and they did something bad. And it's like I just go around and
And
I'm
they
not.
are bad.
Yeah, and I can just say I'm not bad. I know I'm not bad. So if someone thinks
Well,
what?
to me, isn't that trampling on the general case of the preconditioned mind and not so much the particular argument of the preconditioned mind. Like that whole thing about I have an idea that I'm bad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is just one of the classic things that the preconditioned mind says, but it's got quite a little variety of things too that it can say,
Right.
but they're really monumental, such as people don't like me and I'm not likable and I'm an idiot, or sometimes we say it in third person, second person, you're an idiot and you're this and you're that.
I've heard dozens and hundreds of people just be like, they think they sound like an idiot. They think they said something idiotic, and they're worried that someone perceived that they said something idiotic, and then
That's the
it's kind of like for me, I'm just like, hey, I might say something idiotic every now and then, but I don't really care what you think, anyways.
Well, but the preconditioned mind is liable to give us an erroneous like valuation of that, okay? And it's going to come up with it and say, I made an idiot out of myself. And you really might not have. Now, if you did, it's no longer a mistake if you learn from it and you realize, oh, I made an idiot by there. So, is there something I can learn from it? Should I have not said this? Should I have not said? If you learn from it, it's no longer a mistake,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, always. Yeah, I wouldn't put up a block so much as to not analyze my behavior, but I'm going
Right.
to analyze my behavior to such an extent that I have to shut it down. I have to shut 90% of it down, or else I overthink and obsess, you know.
Yeah, but I think in the general case, it's like, I don't even want to know what they're thinking. Good Lord, I've got enough on my mind. You know what I mean? I let it go. The preconditioned mind is all concerned about that because the preconditioned mind is largely composed of like the disapproval of the primary caregivers.
Mhm.
So it says, "Oh, care a lot about if mommy is pleased. Care a lot about if daddy is pleased. It wants you to care a lot about whether other people are pleased."
Yeah, yeah, and it's like if someone insults you, you feel like it's like your parents insulted you, and you go back to like that wound from the caregiver. I mean, I could see how that all ties together. I mean, that's psychology and everything, but I mean, just from my personal experience, it does feel like I had some wounds from early life and they get reawakened, and it's kind of like someone insults you and you go back to how you felt when you were a kid or something. So for that
No
reason,
doubt.
it's my personal experience. uh,
Sure. Well, the idea is to try not to identify with it. Why? Because it's the preconditioned mind. It's not the current you choosing to think about this. It's really somebody else's ideas about you that were burnished into your head and they recur for the rest of your life. So the idea is not to identify with it because unrecognized, we identify with it. And in identifying with it, we relive the pain, that primordial pain. It's awful pain. I do it all the time. It's awful.
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's how we're wired, and you can do a lot of work on yourself, and you're still gonna have you might still be wired that same way, because we're human. That's what being a human, how we're wired. I mean,
Yeah, it's a preconditioning. So it's a hardwire, I think. But the idea is we have something. We have mindfulness,
we have mindfulness.
and we say that's the preconditioned mind talking. And if it is the preconditioned mind talking, why don't I opt not to identify with it? I'm not going to fight against it. I'm not going to try to stop it from having some thought waft through my head. Well, why don't I say that's not me? That's really the voice of my primary caregivers, and let it rest in peace. Let it be.
Rest in peace. Yeah, I that's where I give myself care and compassion, and just say I'm a good person. I mean well. I'm doing my best. Um, I am smart. Even if I said something dumb, I am still smart. Just like little reminders, little affirmations of how I make sure that I treat myself with care and compassion, so I don't let all those mean, preconditioned, intrusive thoughts take over.
Right.
And then,
It's a
um,
lot we've had to put up with. It's a lot we've had to put up with those thoughts.
oh yeah, I'm like my own biggest enemy.
It's a pain in the ass. Those thoughts, really.
So as it attaches to obsession or the inner voice, my advice is, that I found, because I have had success in not obsessing at times, and currently, and it says, don't feed the beast. So the thoughts are going to come. This is just another word for mindfulness, but it's just the thoughts are going to come, and it's going to want to start chewing on something, and taking time out of your day to sit there and obsess on something and strategize something, but or feel something. So when it comes to like an infatuation, you might want to sit there and listen to sad music or happy music, and it's like I can choose whether I do that or not. So as for feeding the beast, feeding the infatuation, it's just like you can avoid the music, you can avoid seeing the person if they're not a good person to be around. You can avoid talking about the person to others, and you can avoid plotting how to get with the person, or trying to
Amen, brother.
trying to
Yes.
control trying to control the situation. Or
And could we say, if it's bad enough, and I've been there where it is, to even think in advance, what other things do I want to think about? I want to think about the Vegas Golden Knights for 10% of today.
mm-hmm.
And I want to think about my shopping list for 5% today. And I want to think about a Beatles song. I'm going to play 3 Beatles songs today so that I spend 12 minutes with the Beatles today. And suppose I said I'm going to refuse to obsess all day. I'm going to make absolute certain, just as an act of my will, to think of other things today in addition, so that I crowd out the obsession a little bit by putting things in to fight against it.
And this is some of the best advice that that you can be told. I've been in obsession and been told this advice, and it's hard to get to it. And
Right.
similar to what you're saying now, but because it takes, you can only do it a little bit at a time sometimes. But yeah, it's
Right.
best advice is to just focus on your own goals, your own life, and find something good in your own life, and just focus on your work and your gym and your you know um your
Golden Knights.
creative outlet is huge for me. So yeah, I had a mentor tell me focus on the positive and the negative will disappear.
It's good to crowd it out. Is what I think. I think it really is valuable. To it was one time I heard of something was, if you want to feel normal, act normal.
If you want to feel normal, go throughout your day making all these little decisions that are for yourself and for your authentic self and what you want in life, and to say, if obsession is creeping in, just say that doesn't serve me in this moment. Maybe I can redirect moment by moment.
Right. Moment by moment. After you do it 50 billion times, it becomes easier the 50 billion the first time.
Yeah, if you get into, why we're obsessing, if it's about an infatuation, um, it's kind of like, well, why am I obsessing on this person, um, but we don't even get along, or they don't even like me, or I've never even talked to them. So it's like the question is the shared values and goals. Do they have shared values and goals? Until you talk to that person, get to know them for quite a while, you don't really know if you guys have shared values and goals.
Right.
And so the obsession is all just an illusion. Did you know the person you were obsessed with? No. Had you talked to them? I had obsessions, like I mentioned, with girls in school. I never talked to them once.
Wow. No, the only really bad obsession I had was with a woman that, we had dated for a few months,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
and then she kicked me through the uprights like a field goal.
Oh, it was like a rejection, like a dumping.
Dump
Dump.
dump truck. Yes, heavy duty dump truck.
Yeah, yeah. And then how long did it last? If you're
It's even too embarrassing to admit. Let's just say I was definitely obsessed for a long time.
Yeah, I hear you, and I know many people like this, and many guys like this, and even a couple girls like this.
Hmm.
I don't know many girls, but I know. I think I remember girls get obsessed on guys too.
Right. Yeah, you had that lady on, what was her name? Mary? Not Mary. Mary?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we had a guest on the show who talked about, hey, it's still going, or it lasted a while, So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. So yeah, it's when it comes to obsessing, it's kind of like obsessing on some outcome I can't control, and when I'm doing that, I'm only hurting myself. And so I have to remind myself of that. It's an illusion of control, overthinking, strategizing, obsessing. It's a illusion of control because um, I can I can only it's not it's a fantasy and an illusion. It's not reality. So I need to ground myself in reality. That's advice for myself.
Right.
So like that's the opposite of acceptance. It's like if we get dumped, and I've been dumped recently, it's like it's like reality is okay, I'm dumped. That's it. I just have to accept that, you know and it's like, as much as if you wanted to try to fix it or whatever, it's like I'm dumped, you know until I'm not dumped. So that relates to what you were saying about, acceptance. Like, did you find did you find acceptance with your obsession?
Eventually,
Yeah.
but it was only after I got into recovery, and went into intensive outpatient, and really took recovery like very seriously, because I had my anxiety had gotten so bad that it was quite debilitating.
I can say it's a beautiful, freeing feeling when you've had an obsession or an addiction for many years, and then it just lifts, and you're like, oh, I don't think that way anymore. It's a very freeing, liberating moment.
Big time.
Even to say, I obsess. I think about this person once a week instead of 100 times a day. You know what I mean?
Right, that's right. That's a big improvement.
Mm-hmm. So that is what's on the other side of recovery, of mindfulness, is that, and part of it is time heals all wounds. And I'm not going to be obsessed on the girl I was obsessed with in high school because that was 20 years ago.
One hopes.
Yeah, yeah. My obsession in high school lasted too long,
Is it?
but it was just like, yeah, it was just like not having enough in my own life and just like always fantasizing that like my life would be so much greater with this person.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm identifying with the ego, right? The ego has that thought, that's not you. That's your ego's thought, and you're identifying with it because why not? Your parents told you it was true. It must be true.
L- Say more.
Ah, what was the exact phrase again?
Well, I was saying it's like a fantasy that like your life would be better with like a certain person or a certain thing in your life. But then you said
Okay.
that was the ego. So like, which part of that is the ego? Like,
The the grass is greener part where, oh, sure, everything will be perfect once this one thing is fixed, then, nothing else, then everything else will be solved. But if we have a problem creating mind, no, as soon as we think we quote unquote solve a certain problem, it'll be another problem, another problem, another problem.
mhm.
Now, when it comes to finding a life partner, I agree that doesn't sound like the repetition is so much a part of that, though, right? Because it could be a one-time life decision. It might not be a thing that goes again and again and again. I mean, you might just get married and you might be happy the rest of your life, So it's a little different than most things, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I feel like you could get married and then be like, oh, if this person just behaved this way, then I'd be happy. Like, I feel like you could
Oh,
do it.
yeah,
Or,
that's
oh,
yeah,
once we have kids, we'll be happy. Like, you could always be doing it. Once we get in a bigger house, where we have, like, you could always
right.
be
If you
calm.
have a problem creating mind that you identify with, yeah, you'll just find another problem. There's no doubt in my mind that the woman I didn't marry would have found endless problems with me, sir. There would have been a list that would been growing faster over the years, not slower.
I think that's when you get into this concept of like happily ever after and like the fantasy is like, oh, once I get everything in place and I have the right girl and I have the right house, everything will be good. But like the true to me, and I've had girlfriends and I've had places and I've gotten things that I wanted to get, but it's kind of like you get on the other side of it and it's really just living and accepting reality is going to be the where you find happiness, not in getting the thing, not getting the outward thing.
Generally, no, but I know some people who are very wonderfully happily married. And
Sure.
oh, sure, they're the, minority cases.
No, well, I
But
mean, what?
it really did turn out wonderfully in some cases. I mean, you must say they're bringing great happiness to each other's lives. I mean,
Oh, yeah, well, that's not my point. My point is that
yeah,
they're in a state of acceptance and gratitude, and that and we as single men can also be in a state of acceptance and gratitude.
Absolutely.
We have.
Absolutely. Even much more so we can be if we want to.
It's it's not about the partnership or who they're with. It's about the attitude that comes with it, and for them that helps them be grateful and accepting. And
Right?
but that's not what you don't need to have the outside thing
No.
to have the happiness.
No. The Bhagavad Gita, which goes back like 4,000 years, 4,500 years, somewhere like that, or no, less than that. But any case, um, supposedly I've been taught that one of the main lessons is not like identifying with the fruits of our labors.
Right.
Because when you plant a fruit tree, it might not come up. All you can do is plant, till the soil well and plant it well and water it well and tend it well, but you can't make a fruit come out.
That's the thing, and I can just apply that to this Brandon K show, which is I can sit here and have great conversations with you, and go to studio and have plan fun shows, and I can plant and plant and plant, but I can't control the outcome. I can't control how many people watch, or
Right,
if people like it or don't like it. You know,
right.
but that doesn't mean that I
We
can't.
love everyone watching very much.
Oh yeah, no one's watching. No, they will. They will be later. But the point is that um, I can just enjoy the planting. I can just enjoy the planting and
Dig,
enjoy life without the fruits.
dig.
Or these are my fruits. I just enjoy what I do. So,
Yes, yes, dig. Beautiful.
and yeah, on the topic of obsession, if any of this stuff wasn't helpful, I recommend can talk to a professional. I recommend. I ended up in intensive outpatient rehab myself, and going somewhere to reprogram your mind, or 12-step groups are all helpful. Seek what works for you. Continue to seek. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't ever give up and say it's hopeless. Um, Patience, and it's important to find others who understand, and that's largely what I do here. Is like I want to put myself out there and say I understand. Because I felt like a crazy person when I was just going around looking for solutions. I was like, people are like, "Oh, why don't you just get over it? Why don't you just get over it?" And I was like, It's a little hard, a little harder for me."
Right.
So finding others who understand, and then maybe by talking to them, you'll help others and think of others, and it'll be a process of helping others and understanding each other, and not just sitting there obsessing on something that is largely an illusion most of the time.
Yeah, and I would say uh, I don't take myself seriously, but I take my recovery seriously because if you are in a really bad place, and thank God most people are not, but a lot of people are in a really bad place. I've been in a really bad place many times in my life. And it's really, important to get out of it and not live forever in it, but to do something about it and turn it around and get out of it.
Yeah, and that's when you get into the concept of fear versus faith. So, in recovery we talk about faith. I mean, in all kinds of different recovery, but yeah, in um which is when I believe in having faith in ourselves. I believe in having faith in a higher power of the universe, and also having faith in humanity, which is a tough one, but I have it written up on my wall, which means, hey, it might look like all these wars and all these politics and fights and issues are, the world, like humans finding almost headed in the wrong direction. But at the end of the day, we're all still here. Society continues. And, you could look at the numbers and say, certain parts of society are still doing well. And hopefully all around the world is doing better than ever. But you have to have faith that that's because of humanity. We are where we are at right now because of humanity. So I try to have faith in humanity.
It would be great. I mean, if humanity would come to a higher plane, like on Star Trek, where everybody, just uh, uh, no longer competes against one another, and there's, I mean, they don't need to fight against one another to survive. There's a super abundance of goods and services,
Yeah.
and like everybody is able to live in peace because nobody has any needs that they need to, trample on somebody else's, person for.
We're not quite
So no, we are not, but we see so much motion in all directions at the same time. Isn't it fantastic? We see things that look really good, like we're moving in a great direction. Then we see these dark specters that make us think that, wow, we're moving in a worse direction than ever before. And then we see things like we don't know exactly what to make out of what these Russians are doing with this Putin thing. Are they about to overthrow Putin and it's going to turn out to be a really good thing? Or is Putin going to get 100 times worse and make the whole thing 100 times worse? We're like, we don't even know any of these things, And maybe it's unknowable. Maybe nobody knows. Maybe it's still just being worked out.
Of course.
So
I mean,
I'm less faithful because I don't know. It doesn't have to end, in a way where the Earth story goes well or the humans on Earth story goes well. It doesn't necessarily, it seems to me, according to the laws of the universe, have to end well.
it does not have to end well, but you kind of just have to accept whatever happens.
Right.
And
And that I do. And it's well in the sense to me of outside of the game that we're in, outside of the virtual reality headset we're wearing, yeah, it's all good. Everything evens out. You know what I mean? If I hit somebody, I was only hitting myself. It was only me hitting me. It's all even in the end.
Right. Well, yeah, for the faith in humanity thing, it's just kind of like I can't predict the future, obviously, but just based on where we are now and based on the fact that I was able to be born into a certain society and we hadn't killed ourselves and destroyed ourselves yet.
Yeah.
We have to have some faith that that we can stay on that track,
I hope so, brother. Man, I know I hope so.
because I'm sure there's been close calls in the past. There's been
Hell yes.
close calls all the time, and
it always seems like it's hanging by a thread.
It always
no matter what generation.
So you can get tied up on that. If we're talking about society, that it always feels like we're hanging by a thread. But I was talking about faith in humanity, which is it always seems like we're hanging by a thread, but we never fall off the edge. Like the whole, we're not destroyed yet as a whole.
We're hanging tough.
And there's people who are maybe living in war circumstances, and we pray for them and hope that they find their solutions and grow and get into. I'm not saying that. I mean, I know that I'm blessed and privileged to be in America, be born in America, and not ever had to have left America. So, but even so, I have faith in humanity around the globe, not just in America.
Right. Well, it's been a long road. We've had this civilization for about 6,000 years going on now, and we've got cell phones now. We got smartphones now. Are you kidding? I mean, one smartphone is better than 5,000 Egyptian pyramids, if you ask me. And we've come a long way. It's a beautiful story. It's an interesting and beautiful story.
And full recovery into total Star Trek utopia is not impossible.
Not impossible, sir. No, sir.
Based on the fact that We have smartphones, we have technology, we have communication and connection with each other. We have the spiritual tools, we have enlightened people. It's just all that has to happen is a spreading a spreading of knowledge and resources. And we have all the resources that every person on earth could sit there and be happy and content. So we're not at a deficit in any way. Our only problem is ourselves and our ego.
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you a small known fact. I think under publicized fact that the U.S. has a debt of about $30 trillion, the government, but the U.S. households have a net worth of about $150 trillion. So if anybody wants to look at the debt, 30 trillion, realize the households have a net worth of 150 trillion, 5 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let anybody tell you that there's some sort of hole, that's sucking wound in the middle and everybody's dying and everything. No, per capita GDP is higher than it ever was. And this debt situation is a complicated situation, but nevertheless, don't think there's not a lot more net worth hanging out against that debt. There is.
Yeah. So we were talking about fear versus faith. There's no point in just sitting there in fear. So I believe that faith is what gets us through. And that whole conversation was faith in humanity. And then it's a faith in a higher faith in the universe, whatever that means to you. And then, faith in ourselves, which is, I like this thing I learned, in therapy circles about like, you got a baby bird on a branch. You got a mama bird and a baby bird, and the mama bird has to push the baby bird off at some point to go fly. And that bird has to have faith in itself. That I forget what I'm trying to say right now. But the idea is that the bird has to have faith in itself to fly. And we need to be like the bird. That's the point of the thing is that I need to have faith in myself that if you push me out into any situation, I can still fly and not be afraid.
Because I have the permanent essence. I have consciousness, and my consciousness has understanding.
We got this.
And the consciousness and understanding that I've been given are very, very powerful and are very, very good at, for example, if you're a bird, they're great at flying.
Yeah, and on the topic of obsession, you might think it's the end of the world. Let's say it's a job. I had a guy on the show talking about he was obsessing over getting a job. It's like my advice to anybody over any obsession is you're going to be okay on the other side, whether you get the job or you don't get the job. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in and whether you get the girl or you don't get the girl. You're going to have faith in yourself, and you're going to be okay on the other side.
Totally. I was unemployed when I met you, and I was very kind of surly when anybody would ask me about job hunt. I'd say, yeah, job hunt, whatever. And, because I was like, I definitely don't want to, every time I see everybody, like, how's the job hunt? And then sit there and get all miserable about it because I haven't gotten a job yet, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I wanted to be like, minimize that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta, of course, it's just not healthy to just obsess.
I already know I didn't get a job offer yet. I don't need to sit there and just relive and pre-live it, right?
So I say fear is the enemy and negativity is the enemy, and that's how I see it. I'll keep banging that drum.
Dig, brother.
Someone came on here to compliment me, so I want to throw that up there. Brandon, wanted to tell you when I was watching Roger's interview that you were looking great. So thankful for you and all the difference you are making. Well, you are much appreciated. I think that's Brandy. And thank you for saying that. Not everybody is as kind as you, Brandy. Mr. Frank.
Yes, sir.
Any final thoughts on obsession?
Well, I was just obsessing, so I forgot what I wanted to say.
You forgot what? Yeah, yeah.
I forgot what I wanted to say because I was obsessing about this girl.
Yeah. This girl, Brandy.
Well, no, a mythical girl.
Oh,
I was just trying to make a joke there,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. Um,
right?
no, no, no. Hey, it happens where our minds can drift, and we got to just pull them back into reality, and pull them back into you know, I have a desire to inspire, Frank.
Yeah, baby.
That means I share my story to try to help other people.
Well, it's beautiful. I tell you, a lot of times when I'm watching your show, I feel a release. I feel a release of tension. I feel a release of fear. I feel a release of regrets. And this is great. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Is feeling a nice, beautiful release.
I'm so grateful to have you on my show. You add a lot to me in my life. This will make sense to you. I see the Brandon K show as a portal.
Tig.
So, whatever that means to you, I feel like I get to start connecting to my higher power when I'm making my show.
Beautiful, beautiful.
My show is me connecting with the people I care about, yourself and others. So I mean, obviously that's going to be a portal,
Right.
So with that, we'll keep it short today, and I will say we're in the middle of dealing with week. We did dealing with addiction and alcoholism, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression with Frank, which is another spot that we went and talked about obsession. We got into a really great conversation there. There's a 3-minute preview. Click on that. That'll hit you to the live stream. Dealing with grief and anger with Michelle. We did dealing with a inner voice and identity with Franklin, and dealing with major life changes with Roger yesterday. Oh yeah, and dealing with life lessons with Nick. So dealing with week has gone 2 weeks. I definitely like to talk about these deeper issues, and we'll be back tomorrow with dealing with rejection with my cousin Patrick. We're gonna do a dealing with suicidal thoughts with a friend.
Mm.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Did you struggle with suicidal thoughts, Frank?
No, but in the worst of moments in my whole life, yeah, I felt them a couple of times, and yeah, ooh, that's hard time. That is hard time, brother.
I deal with them all the time,
Do you?
but it's just again the shoot they just can go through, and I don't have to pay attention to them.
Good, 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 good. Gosh, I'm sorry to hear that, brother. I did not know that. I'm so sorry.
They're just thoughts. They're
Right.
just thoughts. But I have a very chaotic mind, and I'll talk about accepting all that, and some people get closer to others. I never attempted to off myself. I just have the thoughts, and some of us just have the thoughts.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, and then I got a friend who might come on and talk about trauma. I got one. We're gonna talk about trauma and withdrawal. So yeah, I got more. So many episodes, and I hope people are finding them. And thank you for joining me, my friend.
Thank you, BK.
We'll have you on in a little while, and at the latest, we'll have you on to talk about the music you've been making, the music we've been making together.
Making together, yes, brother. I love it. And I know you've been so busy making shows, and just because I send you something doesn't mean you have to do it right away. You'll do it when you get to it, not before, and that's perfectly cool, brother.
Yeah, when I'm at my bar, I'm asking people. I work security at a bar. Someone showed me, what is this app? Is it BandLab? BandLab. So whatever you send me, I can then put it into BandLab, put a microphone in, and then sing or rap over it. But yeah, Frank makes the beats and the music, and then you send it to me, and then I just got to put it into BandLab and then create from there.
Cool.
All right. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna see you next time. And